Story 1. Neglected my body for years. Almost no movement, poor hygiene, horrible food, and little to no sleep. Story 2. I isolated myself for years. I am not sure it could have been otherwise given the issues I had, but it destroyed my social circle. Story 3. Let the person I thought was my best friend back into my life because I felt bad for him. A year later, he killed my son and fiancé in a jealous rage. I appreciate everyone's kind words. I am in an okay place mentally. This time of year is particularly tough. Story 4. I was jumping on our children's trampoline and hurt my back. I have suffered from sciatica pain all these years since. My life would be much better if I had not thought jumping on a trampoline would be good exercise. Story 5. I spent years trying to impress the girl I liked. I should have given that attention to myself instead to improve my life. Story 6. I stayed in a long-term relationship with someone struggling with addiction and alcoholism because I saw these addictions as a type of mental illness. What sort of partner would I be if I abandoned him when he was sick? Then, I had my first serious illness since we had met. I missed a lot of work and had to stay home for almost a month while he was unemployed. He started to get very obviously irritated with me for being home all day, as he didn't have any alone time. He also felt pressured to return to work because I wasn't working and wasn't bringing in any income. I suddenly had a moment of clarity. I realized he was the only one allowed to be sick in our dynamic. While I had been playing nurse for years, he really didn't like when I got to be sick, as if it was a choice, especially when it interfered with his routine. I left him a few months later when my health improved. He passed away about a year later as his health deteriorated rapidly after I stopped caring for him. I do feel some guilt, even though I know I cannot blame myself for the poor choices of an adult man who was almost in his 50s. Story 7. I struggled with bulimia for 15 years, starting as a teenager. This began because my mother put me through Weight Watchers as a child since I was a little chubby. I never felt thin enough. It ruined my teeth and digestive health. I do not recommend it. Story 8. Holding out for a management position instead of moving on. He simply will not retire. The man is in his mid-70s. Story 9. Moved to a new state thinking I needed a fresh start, but in reality, I was just running from my problems. Story 10. Caring for others who do not care about me in return. I wasted far too many sleepless nights on people who would not care at all if I were in a situation like theirs. Story 11. Went rock climbing one day without a helmet. The first time I did not wear it was the day I needed it. A severe traumatic brain injury is an injury I wish upon no man, woman, or child. Story 12. Going to prison at 19 for selling marijuana. In the end, it worked out. I have since graduated from college, have a good engineering job, and a great life. It was a rough patch in my life for sure. Freezing and stuck in a prison cell in Joliet for 77 days. I went weeks without showers or seeing sunlight. Then I was sent to boot camp for 4.5 months to be further humiliated. In the end, it caused me to grow up and prioritize what I want in life. I worked and paid my way through a 2-year community college, followed by a management information systems degree at a 4-year university. Life has not been perfect, but I always keep perspective on a bad day, knowing I have had it much worse. Story 13. I stayed in my college major even after I knew it was not for me. I wasted a lot of time that I can never get back. Story 14. I skipped the mammograms because I had an "it'll never happen to me" attitude when I was younger. Now I am lying on a bed at a breast center waiting to get 5 biopsies for suspicious spots. Story 15. Isolated myself after my divorce. Being completely alone is not the best way to manage mental health. Story 16. Staying in an unhealthy relationship. Not prioritizing moving out of my abusive parents' house. Taking advice from people who have never faced the issues I was having or have any professional experience handling them. Taking on student loans. Story 17. Social media has seriously affected my attention span. I can't even remember how to enjoy free time without checking it every 5 minutes. Story 18. Vaped. It has been 9 months without it, and I still cough and get winded easily. I used to sing well, but I cannot hit notes properly these days. Story 19. I left Walmart after 15 years to be a store manager at Starbucks. It was the worst mistake of my life. I remember nights when I was there, 10 minutes after a closer called off, just to have an opener call out, knowing I would have to wake up in 4 hours to work another shift and hope the same thing did not happen again. It was just awful, and from the stories I heard while interviewing people, I had no idea how bad fast food was. People from other companies wanted to work at Starbucks because those places were even worse. Story 20. Succumb to my food addiction again. After 2 years of extreme dieting and exercise, I lost a lot of weight and reached the best shape of my life. I felt very good about myself. Once I reached an ideal weight, I did not know what to do with myself anymore or how to maintain it. I started eating horribly again, and now, just over a year later, I am at the heaviest point in my entire life. I binge eat to the extreme and feel powerless to stop it. It affects nearly every aspect of my life to some degree, and it is a very depressing feeling. Story 21. Married young at 18, now 61 and divorced. I wish I had planned my life better for my future before I got married. I just did not want to be alone. Story 22. Being naive towards the idea of romantic, idealized love is a fallacy. Work on yourself above everything. Story 23. I fell for the romanticized idea of overworking, overachieving, and ignoring my health-related red flags as a sign of virtue and strength. I felt proud of not getting enough sleep or food, not letting illnesses stop me, and working very hard. In the end, I never received any recognition for it and completely damaged my health at only 24. Now, I cannot do half of what I could before and have lost much time of my prime years trying too hard instead of being a happier person. Story 24. I tried to show off and ended up destroying the lowest 5 vertebrae in my back. Now I am nearly crippled. Story 25. I accepted a promotion. I was working in a job that I really enjoyed, but was offered a promotion that switched departments into an area I had never worked in before. I did not really need the extra money, but thought it unwise to turn it down, and the company really needed help in the new role. I struggled at the job and disliked it. I quit the company after about a year because they had already hired someone to fill my old role and I had no other opportunities with them. Now I am doing multiple jobs that I dislike and feel completely trapped. Story 26. Worked out that day. Ended up with a vertebral artery dissection which led to a stroke. Completely ruined my life. I was only 27. Story 27. Attempted suicide through a car accident. Did not get the result I was looking for at the time. No worries, I am all good now with therapy, medication, and so on. I ended up with multiple broken bones, enough metal holding me together to qualify as a runner-up for the Bionic Man. Missing teeth, permanent jaw pain, a limp, and mild brain damage causing periodic absence seizures. 0 out of 10 would not recommend. Story 28. Not choosing a second cesarean after the first emergency cesarean. During the birth of my second child, my levator ani, the pelvic floor muscle, ruptured, detaching from its proper attachment. I was unaware this was a major risk with vaginal births after a cesarean and did not know it could happen at all. Now, I may never be able to jump, jog, run, or walk fast again without my organs literally falling out. This injury ended all of my volleyball activities, which was my primary hobby, and I played in the 4th league in Germany. It also left me with an extremely weak bladder, greatly affecting my quality of life. The real challenge is that there is currently no way to reattach the muscle to its proper place. This is the current state of research and medical procedures. As a result, I have had to say goodbye to any form of active lifestyle. Story 29. I moved into my boyfriend's family house. His mother hates me for no reason, and she takes every chance she gets to put me down and damage or throw away my belongings. I have never felt so much stress in my life. Story 30. I unlearned everything my dad had taught me about fixing cars and machines. He was very difficult to work with, but I missed out on an imperfect yet real bonding opportunity with him. Now, I have to call a service station if the cup holder is rattling. Story 31. Being a waitress for 20 years is extremely hard on your body, but also on what you can do afterward. I have 2 kids now, and I am lucky to have a husband who can provide. However, if I had to go back to work to support us, our life would not be the same. The hours, the money, and the mentally taxing management, coworkers, and customers make it an unhealthy environment with guilt-tripping and pettiness. Now, I have my weekends and holidays back. I did my time. Story 32. Moving to Manhattan in my 20s, almost 50% of my income went to rent a horrible shoebox studio apartment without any natural light. I could not afford to go out and enjoy being young, let alone save for a down payment on a house. That is not even considering what it did to my mental health. At least I got out of there in my 30s. Story 33. Marriage. The psychological, financial, and sexual abuse has left me an unrecognizable shell of my former self. It is hard for anyone to identify because he is so charming to everyone else. Story 34. Got married to someone who was in love with the idea but not in love with me. The quality of life was reduced so much after 11 years that life almost ended. I am okay now, I guess. I was able to finalize a divorce and escape. I just don't see a path to recovery. Too much was sacrificed to restore myself. Story 35. I became a recluse for a couple of years when the COVID-19 quarantine started. I started drinking beer frequently, eating unhealthy food, and became depressed. I was able to turn things around, thankfully. It required a huge effort on my part, and now that I look back on those times, I ask myself how I was able to endure that much self-inflicted loneliness and self-loathing. Story 36. Poor dental hygiene in my late teens and early 20s. Oh boy, am I paying for it both literally and figuratively now. Story 37. Not so much what I did as what was done to me. The combination of age, artificial intelligence, and coronavirus disease killed my graphic design business. Now, instead of working from home, making my own hours and earning decent money, I am working in a call center with extremely long and stressful hours. No work-life balance, and no creativity. Feels like dying. On top of that, I moved out of my hometown to a different state and allowed my mother to dictate where. I am living far beyond my means and blowing through my savings at an alarming rate. Story 38. Speaking for my brother, he used lysergic acid diethylamide once and developed schizophrenia. He had a mental breakdown from it and never recovered. It was not worth it, in my opinion. Story 39. This may sound glib, but I am going to say it. Moving to a city in Texas. A better way of saying it is, no matter the promotion or the amount of money, never move somewhere where the general and overall ideological or political belief system does not align in any way with your own. Story 40. Had sex just to lose virginity. Ended up getting her pregnant, and she was and still is a bipolar, narcissistic, emotionally abusive person. Yes, you can get someone pregnant the first time. Honorable mention to marrying the first reasonable woman who loved me. I had searched for decades and had done so much to fix myself that I was exhausted and married the first good enough, instead of waiting for someone great. Story 41. I have had body image issues for most of my life. I struggled with bulimia for nearly a decade. Now, I have cavities in most of my teeth. I am afraid to go to the dentist because I know I am losing many of them. Cannot feel any pain, though. I have one unpleasant smile that constantly triggers my body image issues. Also, abusing laxatives can permanently damage your ability to use the bathroom normally. I experience constant gut pain and severe irritable bowel syndrome to the point that I cannot leave my home during flare-ups. Do not engage in bulimia. Story 42. Gained a significant amount of weight during a year-long depression. Still working to lose it. Still disliking everything about the process and other aspects. Story 43. Getting fat. As someone with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder who already struggled to feel comfortable sitting, having extra weight on my legs made it even harder to sit. I have lost 55 pounds so far, with more to go, but I feel so much more comfortable now. I also have far less nerve pain. It is easier to exercise, which helps reduce pain, and I sleep better. You never realize just how much being overweight decreases your quality of life. Story 44. Let my grandmother dictate my college major because of a vague promise to help with college. I had wanted to be a veterinarian my entire life and still do, but was pushed into engineering because it makes more money. I make good money and my career is in a good place, but I have rarely felt job satisfaction, am usually bored, and still want to be a veterinarian. The kicker, her help was to assist me in moving into my first dorm. I paid everything on my own through loans, grants, scholarships, and eventually internship money. So I paid a lot of money to not live my dream. Story 45. Slept less to keep up with school and work. At one point, I was sleeping around 3 hours a night and falling asleep at the wheel regularly. It has been 10 years, and I still have problems from this period of sleep deprivation. Children, do not sacrifice your sleep. Turns out you need it. Story 46. I had heart surgery. The complications have left me disabled. I was not disabled before the surgery. I would have rather lived a possibly shorter life than to be severely disabled. Story 47. Moved in with a friend and her new work colleagues in a completely new city. Worst thing I ever did. Moved out into a new flat with complete strangers using spare room and had the best couple of years of my life. Story 48. Purchased a rental property that was a money pit. I wish we had never done it. Our retirement has been delayed due to costs. Life's lessons. Story 49. I ignored the voice in my head telling me to distance myself from my family as soon as possible. I was a teenager when I started thinking about it. I ignored it and, as I grew older, suppressed it. I thought it was just me being dramatic and reacting emotionally, as my family would say. 18 years later, I finally went no contact. I have spent half my time feeling free, light, and happy, and the other half grieving for the time lost denying that voice. When it comes to our individual survival, we must trust our instincts and intuition every time. Story 50. I used to want to gain weight so I could finally have a butt. I have now been overweight almost the same amount of time I was a healthy weight. I am trying to lose it for this time, and it is incredibly difficult. I have got it though, but the health problems and low self-esteem made living that way a big challenge. Story 51. Stressing about the should-haves, would-haves, and could-haves. Make a decision, but remember you made the decision with all the information you had at the time. Hindsight is 20/20. Story 52. Radiation treatment for cancer never again. It possibly saved me from metastatic disease, and I mean possibly. The side effects are greatly minimized, often dismissed with statements like, "Oh, this only happens to 3% of people." I am permanently constricted in my body, like being wrapped in a blood pressure cuff I cannot remove. I am at risk for future cancers from the radiation, including more breast cancer, skin cancer, lung cancer, and thyroid cancer. My lung is scarred, and I wheeze. Everything in the radiation zone has shrunk, muscle and tissue. I experience untreatable pain ranging from aching, stinging, burning, pinching, electrical sensations, and internal itching. I already look like a walking Picasso painting from the disfigurement, and I can still possibly develop lymphedema at any time in the future from my lymph nodes being radiated. My shoulder and range of motion are impaired as well. All cancer treatments have major life-altering risks, and frankly, it feels like die now or die later. Am I bitter? Absolutely. What is the point if your quality of life is so poor? Story 53. I did not eat breakfast throughout high school. I thought I needed to lose weight because I was a teenage girl in the early 2000s, so I skipped breakfast and smoked cigarettes to suppress hunger. Now, I eat breakfast and quit smoking 6 years ago to the day. However, my metabolism is damaged, and moderate cardio leaves me out of breath like I just reached the summit of Mount Everest. Eat breakfast and do not smoke, children. Story 54. I know this could upset people, but it is my experience. Going to therapy has been difficult. If you have an abusive therapist, prepare for a terrible experience. Just leave. Story 55. Honestly, vaping. So far, I have no adverse health effects, but trying to quit has been horrible. I am sure later on I will show some signs of vaping or have some sort of issue from it. Please do not start. Story 56. Putting everyone first instead of myself. So many things I could have gotten done if I had just put myself first. Story 57. Believing that romantic love is more important than everything else and that I need a man to feel complete. Story 58. I went hiking in Bear Canyon in Tucson, fell and injured my knee. Before that, I ran 6 to 7 miles every day. After the injury, I could no longer run. I have missed running every day since. Nothing replaces it. I wish I had never gone on that hike. Story 59. I sadly stayed close to parents who had abused me as a child and were awful to me as an adult. They were my parents, and I loved them. One day, while taking a shower at about age 45, I looked in the mirror to comb my hair and noticed some small scars on my back and near my ribs. Then I remembered they were from being hit with a belt when my religiously fundamental parents were angry. I spent my life being really hard on myself and finally decided to cut my parents out of my life. It was hard, but the right decision. Story 60. Dating that one guy in high school. The only thing sparing me from a post-traumatic stress disorder diagnosis is the fact that the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders does not recognize emotional abuse as a relevant trauma. Story 61. I wish I never smoked marijuana or drank alcohol. I spent many years abusing them and neglecting myself. I am grateful for my sobriety now and have no desire to revisit any of it. Story 62. I have 2 significant relationships. I spent 20 years with an entitled woman. The one great outcome of that relationship is my daughter. Honestly, I would maintain the relationship just to keep custody of my daughter, whom I have full custody of. The second relationship was with a problematic partner. She forged my signature on her child's birth. Now, I am fighting the state over child support for a child I know is not mine. However, the DNA test I obtained is inadmissible in court. Story 63. Get married. Biggest regret ever. It is hard to say that because I have my children, and I would not wish them away for anything. I love them so much. However, the marriage and husband were awful and he was abusive. Story 64. Engaging in anal intercourse without sufficient lubricant caused permanent damage to my eye, which was already marked with numerous wrinkles. Story 65. Went nomadic as a full-time recreational vehicle traveler. It was easy to sell everything and drive away, but when the recreational vehicle was totaled, I found myself homeless. It took years to return to a normal way of life with my meager funds. Story 66. Had the Implanon contraceptive implant. Once I had it removed, that's when my issues started. I now have hidradenitis suppurativa. It is very debilitating and life-changing, not in a good way. I have had this for over 20 years. There is no cure, and I cannot find the right balance of treatment that suits my body. I am currently waiting for surgery to try to improve it. It impacts every aspect of my life. Story 67. Moving around a lot. I did it because I like to travel, but now that I have settled into a place, I realize I have no friends. Trying to make new ones when you are older is a humbling experience. Story 68. I stayed in an abusive relationship for 6 years. I felt stuck and he refused to move out. He threatened to take our daughter overseas, so I could not see a way out. I had the chance to leave when I was pregnant, but I did not realize how bad he was until after our baby was born. I was stuck in the bedroom with the baby unless I was needed for cleaning, cooking, and non-consensual sex. I should have just run away with my baby. Luckily, we did get out, but he completely changed my soul, and I do not even know how to laugh out loud anymore. Story 69. Graduating college, I wasted the best years of my life working a full-time job and going to school only to get a degree that is barely useful. Computer science should not be a 4-year degree. It should be a trade skill. All of my classmates ended up working at the same place after college due to the housing market crash in 2007. I had to take a $10,000 per year pay decrease to start my career. I was making far more doing the job that I worked to put myself through school. I am doing pretty well now, but it is something I could have learned in a year on the job. Public schools need to stop convincing kids that college is a good idea before they even know what they want to do with their lives. It is state-sponsored debt slavery. Story 70. Accepted a significant promotion. It required moving 1,000 miles away from my family and close circle of longtime friends. Now, 5 years later, I am financially successful but unhappy. I have tried to find work back at my original location, but no luck so far. Story 71. I have spent 30 years not walking much and mainly traveling door to door by car. Now, I am lucky to be able to manage 30 steps without agonizing leg and back pain. Story 72. I studied nonstop when I was 16 and 17 to get into medical school. Interestingly, I was accepted, but I dropped out after one semester. I could have pursued more fulfilling activities instead of studying all the time. Story 73. Playing football in high school led to a blown-out knee. It killed my confidence and caused decades of debilitating pain until I had my knee replaced 3 years ago, which was 35 years after the injury. Story 74. Got married. Now I love my husband and everything, but just one day in my life, I would like the way I leave a room to be the same as how I find it again when I come back an hour later. Not every cleared surface needs something placed on it. Story 75. I have tried for years to foster relationships with one side of my family, even though their actions made it clear they wanted no part of my life. Story 76. Sports injuries. Both my shoulders are crippled. The right one was dislocated several times and repaired. Then I used steroids and ruined the repair. It actually feels okay now. I never dislocated the left shoulder, but all the cartilage in it is ruined and needs to be replaced. It makes sleeping hard, and it is always in pain with reduced mobility. Being in pain all the time takes a lot out of me and hinders my physical activities like climbing and golf. Basically, it is the bane of my existence these days. Story 77. Increased weight on the leg press too quickly. I have had a groin or hip injury for the past 4 years, and no one has been able to determine the cause. Now I cannot walk long distances, experience pain when sitting for too long, and cannot lie on that side. It is very frustrating. Story 78. Trusted the wrong friends. Fell for emotionally manipulative girls. Spent too much time thinking about narcissistic people who never felt guilty for their actions. Realized after a long time that they never do. Story 79. I didn't stretch before splitting and stacking wood, and I threw my back out really badly when I was 28. 20 years later, it has caused all kinds of problems and constant pain. Story 80. For people who want to stop smoking, get varenicline, also known as Champix. 2 weeks on the tablets and you wake up one day and say, I don't want to smoke anymore. Kills the cravings. It is so easy to stop. Then you realize that all the other reasons, like needing it for anxiety or with coffee, are just your physical addiction turning into language in your brain. Story 81. Climbed a railing to retrieve a football and fell from a considerable height. Injured my back for years. Story 82. Moved from the coast to a landlocked flyover state. It is okay now. I am back on the coast, across the street from the beach. Story 83. Took Prilosec, omeprazole, for acid reflux rather than change my diet. I had osteoporosis at 35 years old from this horrible drug. My bones were like dissolving rubber. Prilosec, even taken occasionally, stops your body from absorbing calcium. It took years of heavy workouts to regain my bone strength, but my ankle will never be the same after it shattered into many pieces. Non-weight bearing for over 3 months caused me to lose my income. It was horrible. For the rest of my life, I have an ankle full of metal and arthritis. Your doctor can give you a list of foods to avoid if you have acid reflux. Eat them sporadically and take Tums for breakthrough heartburn. I should point out that I have been athletic and I am very healthy now and living my best life. Story 84. I moved my dad in with me. He was an abusive, controlling father whom I moved 300 miles away from the day I turned 18. Then at 45, I moved him in with my family because he was in end-stage chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. He lived with us for 7 years and passed away from lung cancer. Moving him in with us brought up all of the abuse issues I had pushed aside for years. I ended up in therapy for complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Moving him in with me caused extreme anxiety. Now that he is gone, I have been able to work through all of it, but that was a chapter one never should have started. I needed to deal with my childhood abuse issues, but without him they're constantly triggering me. Story 85. Getting out of the United States Air Force was the worst decision I made in my life. I have struggled financially ever since. I make over $120,000 a year and live paycheck to paycheck in California. I had to deal with the post-September 11th economy. I was an aircraft mechanic, and the industry was in shambles when I got out. I was a young father struggling to make it. I lived through the economic collapse of 2008 and the housing market crash. I have never earned more money in my life but still live paycheck to paycheck. I cannot even make it to the next pay period without overdrafting or having to pull money out of my savings. Just this last Friday, I went to my brother-in-law's retirement from the United States Air Force. We joined at the same time. He was in basic training with me. Now he has retirement benefits, will probably get disability from them, and has education benefits for school. Plus, now he can get a civilian job for extra income. He owns a house, multiple cars, and has traveled the world. Meanwhile, I have barely left the state of California. So yeah, worst decision of my life. I regret it every day. Story 86. Moved to a rural town in the Midwest and not realize that I needed to be blonde to be accepted anywhere. Story 87. I became an alcoholic and experienced cold withdrawals, which I, thanks to God, survived. I have been sober for almost 6 years now. Story 88. Avoided therapy for years. I suffer from chronic depression and have wasted much of my life letting it drain me. Story 89. Getting married to the wrong person. I didn't even resemble myself anymore. Felt like he drained the life force out of me. We separated, and my mysterious illnesses healed. The rash that appeared whenever I was stressed never returned. The 8 pounds I gained while married disappeared without effort. I am physically safe. No one tries to intimidate me. Saving money is easier because I respect my budget. I am no longer in a dead bedroom. Marriage can be great, but if you are in a bad marriage, trading your spouse for a pet can be a huge upgrade. Story 90. I spent 30 years as a pillar of society in a very niche world. I got sick, stepped away, and less than a year later, no one remembers me or what happened. So much for being the industry standard. I see my influence everywhere now, but people do not recognize me anymore. I wish I had not wasted my energy for decades. I made the choice to be nonprofit, but it did not improve my life at all. Story 91. I did not go to the dentist for a few years in my 20s. No one was making me go, and it was just a pain to schedule appointments. I thought I was doing all right. Turns out I was not. I had to deal with many issues because of that poor choice. I am still dealing with them a little bit because I have to be vigilant, and my dental checkups are a little more expensive because of it. Children and young adults, do not skip dental appointments. Trust me. Story 92. I grew up in an upper-middle-class background and chose a career that I thought would be acceptable and flexible enough to allow me to focus on motherhood. After having 2 children and with current advancements in artificial intelligence, my workload is almost non-existent. Our finances have declined significantly, and I do not know how I will recover unless I go back to school. I am already enrolled to start this fall, but it will be at least 4 years until I am qualified. Nothing else related to my field is a viable option, so I really have no choice. I am the oldest, but my brother, stepbrothers, and all our cousins made better career choices and therefore have a much better quality of life. I am just the person who stepped off a cliff. If anything, it is a mark of privilege. My parents were so unconcerned with money that they did not even think to warn me I was making an unwise choice. They simply wanted to support my dreams. I cannot fault them for that, but I wish I could go back to my younger self and tell her she will hate her career in 10 years because the financial stress drains all the joy. Story 93. I gained weight intentionally and actively. I allowed a difficult woman to take advantage of me repeatedly. I work a job that keeps me on my feet for 8 hours a day, lifting, bending, pulling, and twisting, but I cannot lose the weight. I miss running and jumping, but I still love eating. Story 94. Being a caregiver to my mother destroyed my body and mind. I had to finally put her in a nursing home. It has been nearly 2 years, and I am still trying to recover. Story 95. Quitting my dream job in Florida and moving to California because my husband wanted me to. Yes, I am stupid. Story 96. Went vegan from ages 17 to 22. Ended up developing full-blown anorexia. severely damaged my bone mineral density since I was starving myself during a crucial stage of bone development. Normally, people achieve peak bone density during these years, so I significantly reduced my potential maximum bone mineral density. I weighed 105 pounds when I graduated college at 5 feet 8 inches tall. Later in life, I was told my parents considered forcefully hospitalizing me during that time. I figured all that out over the following 20 years. Now I have a healthy relationship with food, and looking back, I see that much of it was rooted in needing to establish control in my life when many things felt uncertain. I believe that I took years off my life during that time. I've never been able to gain much muscle mass. In my early 40s, I realized my testosterone levels are very low, and I am starting testosterone replacement therapy to help with that. I would bet a month's pay that my anorexic years contributed to this. I am not looking forward to seeing what other health issues may arise in the future that could be traced back to this time period. Story 97. Bulimia for almost a decade ruined my body. I have acid reflux and will never feel comfortable in my own skin. My teeth are yellowed and I have gum recession. I don't know how to eat now, which sounds insane, but I no longer can read hunger cues or know when to stop eating. I have been recovered for 4 years, but it still affects me. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.